Do you move to the beat of your own drum, or must you conform to the mainstream culture to be happy and fit in? At a time of numerous incidents when many are bullied simply for not complying, is there beauty in being different? Celebrating your uniqueness. Next on Living Smart. Welcome to Living Smart, the show designed to help you get the most out of life. Before writing her first book, The Beauty of Different, writer-photographer Karen Walrond was the national award-winning author of the blog Chucolunks.com. This after she left corporate America. First as a structural engineer, then as chief counsel of a major corporation. Today she uses what she learned from corporate America and digital media. She combines her photography, writing, and desktop skills and helps us find the beauty within us by discovering the attributes that make us unique. Her blog and her book provide daily photographic proof that beauty can be found anywhere, every day. And so we welcome Karen Walrond.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
What was the inspiration to write this book?
Well, you know, there's a lot of inspiration, but I think primarily I was really sort of intrigued with the fact that all of us, I think everybody is really intrigued by people who are different, whether they sing differently or look differently. Lady Gaga is a great example of this, right? Like we love,
she wants to be different.
Exactly, and we love it. And it's funny because when we see somebody who's different, look, dress, hairstyle, whatever, then people like flock to be just like them. And so I think that's really interesting how we see something that's different and then we all try to be like that person and then we're all the same. Right? But yet juxtapose that with people who also feel like they never fit in. Like the thing that's different about them is something that they should be ashamed about or that they should hide. And I thought that was such a really interesting dichotomy that we love different but just not in ourselves.
Interesting.
And I thought, you know, if there are so many people, particularly famous people like Lady Gaga, that can really look at themselves and say, you know what, this is different and I'm going to frame it in a way that's fantastic, then why don't we all do that? Why don't we all look at what's different about ourselves and do it? So that was really the inspiration, is I was kind of seeing that happen and thought, you know, I'd really like to explore what's different in everybody else.
And I hear people say about Lady Gaga that she allows them to feel different, that it's okay to be different. That's
Absolutely.
what I've heard. Now, you say that the media does lie about what perfection is. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's sort of the obvious ways. If you look at fashion magazines or that kind of thing, we're sort of bombarded that you're supposed to be a certain size or look a certain way or be a certain race or have hair a certain length. But I don't think that's it. Like, I think there's even more that we don't even realize how much we're told the way we're supposed to live. If you think about it, you know, at the beginning of the year, we're constantly told, lose that extra weight, lose those pounds.
Just
Here's
at the beginning, not in the middle of the year, but at the beginning.
We're just sort of bombarded, right, with that. Or, you know, just you know, different commercials. You see what the family is supposed to look like. The family is supposed to be the beautiful mom and the gorgeous dad and the boy and the girl, and the boy's always older.
With the dog.
With the dog, absolutely. And so we're just constantly told this is what happy should look like. This is what love should look like. This is what prayer should look like. This is what patriotism should look like. We have all of these kind of things that are constantly coming at us. And I think that I think the lie is that while all of that is valid, there are so many other ways to love, to show patriotism, to be a family, to pray, and that kind of thing. So I think it's a very myopic view of what beauty is supposed to be. And I think we get trapped in that because we start to internalize it, and we start to believe it, and then we get into a cycle where, well, I'm not good looking enough, or I don't love the right way, or pray the right way, or
I'm too
have
fat.
the right job, or I'm too fat, or what, you know, whatever else, and we start to really internalize that. And I've gotten to the point where I believe that there's sort of these two different kinds of beauty. That I think there's sort of this commercial beauty that sells product, right?
The airbrushed one.
The airbrushed one, the perfect one, and then it's the kind of beauty that we respond to every day. One of the exercises that I love to do with people is say, you know, if you think about the people in your life who you think are truly beautiful, right? Just think about who is really beautiful in your life. Chances are the person that you come up with isn't Heidi Klum, right? It's somebody, it's a grandmother, or it's a child, or it's somebody that really stirs your soul. And I think that is more valid, a more valid definition of beauty, and that's what we really should strive for, is being able to stir other people with what it is that makes us different.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, part of you is in this book, right?
Sure.
Part of you. Tell me about that. How much of it?
You know, it's really funny because as I wrote the book and interviewed people and photographed people, a lot of people were like, well, Karen, you have to put yourself in there because you've come from this law background and now you're a writer and you've had this really kind of transformation. And there's certainly me in it. I didn't want the book to be particularly about me. There are definitely people who are featured in it. But there's a lot of my opinion that's in it. There's some anecdotes that sort of formed my worldview that are in it. So there's a little bit of me in it, for sure. But it's primarily about people who I think really, really exemplify the concepts of the book.
Tell me how you did it, because I think you had a lot of individuals, and then you chose some of the individuals who came, right?
Yeah.
Tell me how you chose the people that...
Sure. Well, so the way the book is sort of set out is there's 8 chapters, and there's just 8 different ways that people are different. Obviously, it's not, you know, an exhaustive list, but it's just 8 ways. And those people, there are people who are really featured. Their portraits in words and images are really featured. But then sprinkled throughout the book, there are just everyday people, because I wanted to kind of prove that everyone is beautiful and everybody has this. So I just basically did a casting call in a kind of way. I just put the word out on my blog and on Twitter and just said, hey, if you want to meet me in January, this is about a year ago now, if you want to meet me in January at the museum, I'll be taking photographs for 5 hours, and I can't pay you, but I will give you a photograph of yourself. Wow. And the only requirement is you have to come with the answer of what makes you different. And it was amazing. And so I had about 35 people who came. Most of the people who came ended up in the book. And funnily enough, their answers to what made them different sort of corresponded with the 8 chapters without trying. And so it just kind of felt, people had great stories about their childhood or what they do for a living or how they look or things that they believe about themselves that made them different. And it just happened. So it was very, very organic. I would love to say that, I went to an agency and got actors or models, but it really were just people that I'd never met before that came and really generously shared their stories.
Somehow you found beauty in those people. What do you think is the source of your own beauty?
Oh, gosh. It's funny because it's a difficult question to ask. You ask people, like, what makes you beautiful? And they're, the source of my own beauty. One of the things that I think about when I'm asked that, growing up, I was constantly told I was too sensitive. You're too sensitive. You get your feelings hurt too much. You're too sensitive. But honestly, I think I tap into that a lot for my work, right? As a writer and a photographer, I have to be in touch with that. So I think that that's the source of my beauty. The thing that actually was I was made fun of so much when I was a kid is actually, I think now, probably my superpower, really.
Exactly. Well, now we're going to take a look at the photos and some of the stories that you took.
Great. I've always been fascinated by people who are different from me. I love connecting with people. I love learning from them. I think this is true of a lot of us. We all love people who are truly individuals, even though, at the same time, we spend so much of our lives trying so hard to fit in. Why is that? Then one day, it dawned on me. I think the reason we love different so much is because we find it beautiful. So I decided to test my theory. I took a notebook and my camera and interviewed and photographed people around me,
trying to learn about and capture all the ways they're different. And it turns out, I was right. The things that make us different are, whether we know it or not, often the things that make us beautiful. And we are all, every one of us, uniquely, breathtakingly beautiful.
Can you share one of the most interesting stories from your book?
Sure. That day that I was out there shooting everybody in front of the museum, there was a young woman that came up. I'd never met her before. Very, very pretty woman, physically pretty woman. And she introduced herself, and I asked her, what makes you different? And she immediately said, well, my full lips, she said. When I was a kid, people made fun of my lips, and they called me fish lips. And she had these beautiful lips, like these sort of lips that people are spending thousands of dollars injecting themselves for to get these lips. And I looked at her and I said, you're over that now, right? She's like, yeah. And like a month later, she emailed me, and it turns out that she was a photographer hobbyist, and she had just decided to start her own business. And she was kind of, brainstorming with some friends who had heard about me taking her photograph, and she loved the photograph. And her friend said, you need to call it Fish Lips Photography. And she said, I think I'm going to do it. So now she has a business called Fish Lips Photography.
I love it.
And
so
it was
she
all
just made fun of it herself.
Exactly. So she's just reframed it as the source of her beauty, which is fantastic.
Saving money on Botox.
And saving money. Exactly.
Now, you had a national award-winning blog, about 90,000 readers a month. What did you learn from writing that blog, and did you incorporate any of that into your book?
Well, I mean, it's still going, so I write it every single day, and I've got some amazing readers that really share their stories. So there was certainly a lot of that, of people sharing their stories and sharing their lives with me. The main thing reason that I got a lot of inspiration from it was I was asked to speak at a conference about blogging, and because my blog is sort of not like a lot of blogs in that it's very heavily visual as well as heavily wordy, right? A lot of photo bloggers are mostly visual without words, or vice versa. And I was told, your blog sort of defies description, talk about that. And I thought, well, that's kind of the whole point of the book, right? Like, that's what it is about people. When they defy description, we love it. And so really, it was the stories that I got from the blog and sort of being asked to speak about my blog that really thought, well, maybe we should write something, yeah.
Well, share some of the funny, you had some funny anecdotes from your book, too.
From the book, oh, goodness. Gosh, there's so many silly ones. Personal anecdotes or... So there's one of my father that I love that I wrote about in my book. So I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from Trinidad. And my dad has a much thicker Trini accent than I do. And when he first came to Texas, he went to get to breakfast with some coworkers, Texans. And they had biscuits and gravy for breakfast. And he had never had that before because we don't eat biscuits and gravy in Trinidad. And then the next day they had left. And so he went back to the restaurant, the diner, and couldn't remember the name of biscuits and gravy. And so when the waitress came over, he goes, "Can I have your buns covered in gravy?" and the woman was like, "I'm sorry," And so it was. So there's little.
And he said it with a serious face.
Yeah, he was like, "Can I have your buns covered with gravy?"
And she slapped him right across the face.
No, we don't do that. We don't say it that way. So there's some stuff like that. There was one guy who came when I photographed him, and he said there was nothing different about him because a lot of people say, "Oh, there's nothing different." And I said, "Well, let's explore that." I said, "Do you play any instruments?" And he said, "Yeah, I play the tuba." And I said, "You play the tuba?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Like professionally?" And he said, "Yes." And so I thought, oh, he must be with the symphony. And I said, "Well, where does one play the tuba professionally?
It's a symphony, yeah.
And he plays children's music.
Oh,
Professionally,
my
which
gosh.
is so fantastic, right? And so beautiful that he does that.
And he didn't realize
and he
it was
didn't,
being
that's just
unique.
his life. He didn't
Right,
even think
right.
about it as being different. But
They don't look at it as
obviously it is.
Your life philosophy is there throughout the book.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think, I just think life, and I think if photographers get this, that life is really beautiful. And I think that what photography for me did is it forces you to stop and look, right? You have to stop, you have to look, you have to look at the light, you have to look at things, and it forces you to stop. And really beauty is just, is everywhere. And I think that that's probably a big philosophy that's in the book.
Did you learn anything from each photo that you took?
From each photo? One of the things that I thought was really interesting is, it's not fun to sit down and get your photograph taken. Like, a lot of people feel like it's like going to the dentist minus the drill, right? And everybody really was like, oh, make sure you get my good side or whatever. And what I found was often the thing that I was drawn to in the photograph was the thing that people were really shy about. I had one woman that I photographed recently she had beautiful blue eyes, and I said, oh, I'm going to try to get your eyes, and she got really startled, and she said, are you making fun of me? And I was like, no, you have gorgeous eyes. And it turns out that she'd had surgery when she was a child to correct an eye problem, and so a lazy eye. And so when she got tired, her eye would be more lazy, and she thought that I was mocking her. And I was like, oh no, they're beautiful. They're your beauty. And it's really funny how people sort of, the thing that is very startling about them, a lot of people are like, oh, don't look at it. And I'm like, are you kidding? That's the thing. That's the thing that makes you beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny because some people, if you find something like that in them, like a lazy eye, and they make a very big deal out of it, I'm like, but that looks good on you. They don't believe you.
Yeah, exactly right.
I mean, it's really amazing. Any wisdom that you learned from all these people? You photographed a lot, 35 people.
I did.
And you spent time with them. It's sort of like, in certain cultures, they believe that you take their soul, and in a way, you kind of do.
Yeah, and I really does feel that way. Or actually, to flip that, it feels like people are giving me something. Like, people are allowing me to see something that maybe other people don't get to see. One of the women that's in the book, my friend Lori, is in the book, who she has a cleft palate, a corrected cleft palate. And she said something that I think was so profound, and I've quoted her many times. She said, I decided that I was going to create my own story. I wasn't going to let other people create it for me. And I thought that is so great, right? That she sort of decided, I'm just going to decide I'm beautiful. And I'm going to, and not be defensive about it or, by God, I'm beautiful, but just, I'm going to live my life like I'm a beautiful person because I believe that to be the case. And people definitely respond to her. They're very drawn to her. They love being around her. And I think that there's something to be said for that it's not about getting defensive or hiding, but it's about, I am perfectly cool the way I am. And anybody who has a problem with that, that's their issue. It's not about me. And really sort of try to live that. And so that's probably the main thing that I got from talking with people. Absolutely.
I mean, it's accepting who you are.
Self-celebration, even more than acceptance, right? Self-celebration, I think.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a quiet type of celebration.
We should all do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the important things that are happening today in our culture when we're talking about different is bullying. If you are different, if your choices are different, if you're short, if you're fat, if you're tall, if you're whatever the different is, sexual orientation, whatever it is, a lot of kids and even people get bullied.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Why
are people so afraid of different?
I don't know. And it's really funny because a lot of times you sit there and you think, like, you hear a story about a child being bullied, and you sit there and think, well, what can I do? What can I do to make sure that doesn't happen? And I think when we think about bullying, I mean, I'm no expert, but just as a photographer, as somebody who observes, that there's two people that we really need to take care of there. There's certainly the bullied, the people who are the victims of bullying, but then there's the bullies, right? Like,
why are they bullying?
Why are they bullying? And personally, I have a young daughter, and as I think about it, when it comes to bullying, I think as parents, we need to sort of model the behavior we want our kids to have. Now, I'm hoping that most parents don't go around bullying other people, but, you have things like maybe children overhear you talking about another parent, right, in language that's not very kind. Or even television, reality shows. I mean, there's so much on television now that shows bullying as entertainment, right?
Yeah,
that shows, that people who are struggling with addiction or overeating or whatever else, and we gawk at them.
Right.
And I think that if that's the case, if that is the way that we entertain, how are our children supposed to grow up and think
not bullying or not
right,
thinking
or not
that's
think of it as
cool.
another way? Just think of
Right.
it, oh, that's just entertainment. So of course we're going to sneak a hidden camera somewhere and then mock whatever we see on the other camera. So I think that there's a sort of media diet that probably as parents we need to go on, or at least talk with our kids about what we're seeing and why it's not acceptable. And then for the bullied, for kids who are victims, I mean, I think you have to sort of model self-acceptance, self-celebration in your own life. Really be there for your kids, support, show them how great they are, how beautiful they are, and then let them know that you've got their back. If the situation arises, God forbid, that you're there for them. I mean, I don't know what more we could do.
I think. You have a 6-year-old.
I do.
And you had faced some things when you first came to this country.
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit of that, what that was like and how you overcame.
Oh, yeah.
That.
So I talk about it a little bit at the beginning of the book. I talk about when I first came to the United States, I was 12, which is such a confident age, right? So
right.
I was 12
That's
years old and pretty much all knees and teeth. And I moved to a very sort of homogenous neighborhood. And so nobody looked like me in my middle school. Nobody sounded like me for sure. And it was tough. It's tough kind of making friends. And I had some teachers that kind of gave me a hard time and that sort of thing. And it's awful. But like I say, I don't really know how it happened. I just was able to kind of dismiss a lot of the bad and focus on the good and sort of find my tribe and find people who could who supported me and and that's really what you have to do. And I think I had a dad who has a PhD and got his degree in the 60s and in America, and he was always somebody that was like, that there are certain things that aren't worth responding to, that they're so ridiculous they're not worth responding to, and you just have to sort of live above it. And so I think in a lot of ways he modeled that behavior for me, and that helped.
And that helped a lot.
Sure.
What is your different?
My different. I think that, I talked about my sensitivity earlier. I think that's part of it. I think also I'm able to find beauty pretty much anywhere, because I think it exists. And as I look around, I don't know that that's a trait everybody has, and I wish more people did, because I think everybody can do it.
Right.
But it does come relatively easy to me, which is great.
And your superpower?
At the same.
The same.
The same, that I can combine the sensitivity and be able to see different and really celebrate it, I think.
That's wonderful. Okay, let's go back and look at, sort of summarize what we've learned today. What are the 3 most important things about being different?
About being different. I think, there's as I was thinking about this, there's 3 things. First is what my friend Lori said, that, you create your own story and don't let other people create it for you. You create.
You're the master of your own destiny.
Absolutely. Yeah. The captain of your soul. All
exactly.
of that. You absolutely are. So I think that's one thing. The second thing I think it is, and I was thinking about this in terms of the president. If you think about it, the president of the United States has a cabinet that he handpicks. And these are people that he trusts for advice, and he doesn't necessarily do what they say, but he listens to their counsel and takes it in and then makes his own decision. And I think that we kind of have to be the president of our own lives.
Right.
And surround ourselves with a cabinet, the people that we can really trust to kind of to give us good advice and not tell us about ourselves, bring ourselves down, but celebrate us, but also don't pull punches, tell us what's up. And that's not to say that you listen to everything they say and do it, but you listen to everything they say and consider it. And you have to figure out who that tribe is, who that cabinet is. You've got to be able to figure out. So it's not the media that's telling you this is how you should look or act or whatever. It's these people that you can think of that you really value their opinion to consider and then draw your own opinion. So that would be the second thing. And then the third thing, I think, as far as living and celebrating your different, I think it requires a lot of introspection. I think that generally, or at least I didn't, spend a whole lot of time really figuring out what it was that lit me up, what turns me on, what is it I respond to. And so I think there's a lot of introspection, and you can do it in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's meditation, there's yoga.
Yeah,
but if that's not
nature,
whatever it is. For me, it's journaling. I journal every morning.
Very good.
So journaling's a good thing. It could be running, but I think spending some time really kind of delving into what it is that lights you up, what it is that you're really good at. Make a list of your superpowers.
Your passions, too.
Absolutely, making the perfect grilled cheese sandwich, or
it wouldn't be mine. It would not be mine.
Exactly.
Have somebody else maybe the grilled cheese sandwich. That would be mine.
Well, maybe being able to know what a good grilled cheese sandwich is. But really kind of take the time to figure out what it is that that really lights you up and turns you on. And I think like making a practice of it, of really sort of figuring out what is it that you don't like and what is it that you are turned off by, and and sort of really getting to learn the kind of person you are and then celebrate it. I think that's it. So probably those three things.
Well, I recently started just dancing by myself, and I clean the house while I'm dancing and listening to music.
I think there's a woman, her name is Chris Carr, and she had cancer, and part of her therapy is to dance for one song every day. Absolutely. Beautiful. I love that.
How do you know you're living smart?
Oh, well, for one thing, I'm far happier than I've ever been. So I think that's...
Really?
Absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
Because I think I found my bliss, and I think I found what it is that I like to do, and I try to live my life accordingly. And so, even that's not to say, I'm sort of in this blithering happiness without stress. Obviously, I have stressful moments, but I think before I did the kind of introspection and writing this book and photographing, I lived in a constant state of stress. Like I woke up stressed, and I just was stressed. And now that's definitely not the case. And I think when we really focus on the happiness and the good in our life, that gives us a reserve to draw on when the stressful and bad stuff happens, right? So
Thank you very much.
Definitely. That's how I know.
Great to have you here, Karen.
Pleasure.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Thank you.
And to learn more about the beauty of different, go to our website. There you'll find a complete resource list. You can also email us or call us with your comments at 713-743-8513. And that's our show for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to live smart. I'm Patricia Grass. Have a unique, different type of week.
For a transcript of this program, send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.
Is there beauty in being different? There is something we all have in common: our individuality. Find out how that uniqueness is the source of your own beauty, power, and freedom, and learn to stand up to those threatened by it. Next on Living Smart.